It's time for another episode of the Shaun Tabatt Show, a podcast where I connect you with thought leaders from across the globe, dig into some of my favorite topics like personal development, marketing, spirituality, and pretty much any other shiny object that happens to catch my attention. Today, my special guest is the one and only Stu Heinecke, and we're going to be discussing his long-awaited book, Get the Meeting, an illustrative contact marketing playbook. And full disclosure, I had to go look up how to pronounce illustrative. But I was like, is it illustrative? Is it illustrative? But Google has everything. It had a button to hear how you should pronounce it in American English. So Google, thank you for saving my life. Stu, it's always a joy to talk to you, my friend. Welcome back to the show.
Hey, Shaun, thank you so much for having me on. By the way, I thought it was illustrative.
You know, I'm going to believe Google this time. If I find out Google steered me wrong, I will certainly let you know. And, you know, we were emailing back and forth in the last couple of days to get ready to jump on Zoom to do this interview. And I was joking back and forth because you and I think have traded like 20 or 25 messages in the course of trying to get to actually making this interview happen. And ironically, I was like, it's kind of an example of sort of that being persistent, you know, and I'm busy, you're busy. It wasn't like we were trying to avoid each other, but in the terms of trying to get the meeting or get an appointment with somebody, sometimes it takes 6 months, 8 months, a year, and you have to learn to not take it like as something offensive or somebody's putting you off. And so I thought that was kind of funny since we're talking about a book designed to help people get a meeting with somebody. I kind of walked through the steps of being persistent to connect with you again.
Yeah, well, I had to demonstrate it to you a little bit, right?
See, you're just the wise teacher. It's coming out. You're trying to help me really understand what the book is all about. Well, like I mentioned, I think earlier, it's been a couple years since we last talked. And so I'd love to start this conversation today really with the same place we did last time. And that is with a bit of the Stu Heinecke origin story. So in terms of the listeners, the viewers, the people who have not read either of your books yet, they're encountering you for the very first time. What are a few things they need to know about you?
I've got the craziest background, actually. I'm one of the Wall Street Journal cartoonists. That's already a shocking thing. It's like, what? You really? Okay, you never meet those people. So I'm one of the Wall Street Journal cartoonists. I'm also a Hall of Fame nominated marketer. I've been using cartoons and humor, well, really cartoons in marketing applications my whole career. Often, or in the beginning, I should say, against the headwinds, thanks to David Ogilvy, who used to say that people don't buy from clowns and humor doesn't work, and all sorts of other permutations of don't use humor. And I guess he didn't understand it. I don't know. Anyway, so Hall of Fame nominated marketer, and then also an author. And this all came about. I wrote a couple of books. That's these guys right behind me. How to Get a Meeting with Anyone, and then the later one, Get the Meeting. And all of that came about because I discovered that if I sent people a cartoon about them, I could get through. And in fact, the first thing that happened was I started my business that way with 24. I just reached out to 24 people in the publishing industry. I got through to all of them. It was 100% response rate. All of them agreed to meet. All of them became clients. It was also 100% conversion rate. It launched my business, and it all came from this little campaign that cost me $100 or so, maybe a little less, and went to 24 people. It was really amazing. So I didn't know what to call that. My little campaign was an 8x10 print with a note that explained that I had just created test campaigns for Rolling Stone and Bon Appetit magazines, and both of those beat their controls, meaning they set new records for response. And we should put this to the test for your titles. And that's what all of that broke me through really quickly. And I thought, that was, wow. Wait a minute. Where'd that come from? And so that, and also, man, why aren't I cool? I've got a secret weapon. I got to try this out on other people. And I started using it on presidents and prime ministers and celebrities and all kinds of C-level executives and top decision makers. And I was just getting through to all of them. So I guess that's it. The only other thing that I would add is that sometimes I throw in the fact that I was in terms of professionally, I think I was like raised by wolves, because all of my heroes as a kid were these cartoonists from Playboy and from the New Yorker, and eventually they became my I guess I can't call them partners, but they became part of my group. I recruited them into my marketing group and learned a lot from them. I mean, this was like, I don't know how you could take a better course on cartooning. Actually, they all, I think unwittingly became my mentors for cartooning, which was kind of cool. So that's my origin story.
Well, any origin story that has you being raised by animals in any way is interesting. There are so many classic storylines that have that exact thing. So I love it. Thank you for that, Stu. In terms of the new book, Get the Meeting. Now, this is a follow up to your best selling book, How to Get a Meeting with Anyone. And to some degree, it's your fans, your readers who I would say were demanding this new book. So, in terms of after people read that first book, what were they asking you to fill in? What was the gap they said you needed to address at some point in a future book?
Well, I heard from a lot of people as soon as it came out. I mean, you can connect with me pretty easily on LinkedIn, so and that's great. I love to connect with readers, and so two kinds of stories were emerging. One was, man, we should have spoken before you finished your book because I have another method for breaking through it. Okay, cool. Tell me about this. This is great. So I was hearing more and more um, just strategies that I didn't or hadn't included in the first book. And the other kind of story was I read your book and it changed a lot changed my results. But one of the things I would have loved to have seen in your book was photographs of the campaigns that you wrote about. I mean, I really would have loved to have seen what these look like. Okay, well, um, my publisher said, okay, let's do a follow-up. What do you have in mind? And I said, well, I think the first thing is I ought to compile I don't know, 60 or 70 case studies, but this time include photography. And I think that people would really I mean, that's what people have been asking for. And then also there are all these new techniques that they're not really new. They're just other techniques that's new to me, to include there as well. And I ended up one of the things that came about when I was writing Get the Meeting was that I realized, well, the model for contact marketing needs to expand a little bit. And so, what I had been doing was sending out stuff. I mean, I like to send stuff. People use all kinds of methods for reaching out, but I tend to send physical things. In fact, I tend to send something with a cartoon on it. And, they go out and people either respond or they don't. We tabulate that and then we move on. But it started to bother me. I have one client that, in particular, I'm thinking of that is a Fortune 250, and they told me that they're using account-based marketing as their go-to-market strategy. So, account-based marketing means it's really kind of an old thing, isn't it? Because you're just saying these are the accounts we want to break through to, I should say, and so go get them. And they're assigned to sales reps, and it's their job to break through. It's kind of the age-old description of selling, anyway. But their top accounts in their ABM plan, their global accounts, they weren't getting through to them at all. In fact, the VP of marketing told me that they were getting through to those accounts exactly 0% of the time. And so I suggested using one of our big boards, one of our cartoon big boards. So it's this big 18 by 24 inch, quarter-inch thick foam core board with a cartoon about the recipient. And then on the other side, all the branding and messaging from the sender to the recipient, explaining who they are and why they want to meet and what the next steps are. And that changed their response, their meeting rate contact rate first from 0% to 70%.
Wow.
That's a big jump, and then their meeting rate from 0% to 50%. So I thought, well, first of all, those are spectacular marketing numbers. You never hear numbers like that in marketing, but it started to bother me that we weren't getting that other, let's say for the contact rate. What about that other 30%? Why aren't we? What's wrong? I mean, what's going on with those? Why are they not responding? And why aren't we getting through to them? And it can't just be that they're saying, okay, that sounds interesting, let's meet. It could also be, we're under contract, so this isn't the appropriate time, or whatever. It could be we've had prior experience with your company, we don't like you, or whatever it is, or we don't buy that stuff. Whatever it is, they should also respond so that you know. And particularly if it's existing contracts, well, then find out when those expire and figure out how you're going to nurture this relationship so that by the time they consider other options, you're one of them. So anyway, so I just thought, well, why don't I expand this model a bit so that we can find ways to actually expect to get 100% response rates every time. So that's actually even on the cover, which I think is marketing heresy. But how to get a meeting, how to get 100% response rate every time. But what I'm really saying is, let's set 100% as our base rate for this. Let's expect that and work toward that so that it actually happens. Because it's not like in direct response, they used to tell me that a 1% response rate was about what you should expect, and 100% response rate was impossible. That must have come from David Ogilvy too. I don't know, but they're in contact marketing. These people are getting response rates as high as that, actually even beyond that.
Well, in terms of promises on a book cover, or even as you're setting up marketing campaigns, you may as well go bigger or go home. Nobody wants to read a book about 10 amazing steps to get a 25 for 50% response rate. Who wants that? Everybody wants the 100% response rate. So I'm glad the marketing team at the publisher really wanted to be aspirational and push all the way to the top. I know some of our listeners probably aren't as versed in marketing speak. I know not all of the people who follow the show spend all their day, thinking about marketing. Some of them are authors or small business owners. And so I'd love to have you just unpack that term contact marketing a little bit more. If we were just trying to distinguish contact marketing from, say, content marketing or digital marketing, what makes that different or unique, if you had to explain how that stands out?
Yeah, well, marketing is a broad term, right? And subject. And so there are lots of subsets of marketing. And you mentioned content marketing and digital marketing, and there's direct marketing and so on. Contact marketing, though, is when I was writing the first book, How to Get a Meeting with Anyone, and I was asking the sources about how they're breaking through to people who are very, very difficult to reach. I was also asking them, this thing we're doing, I'm using cartoons, you're using emails or some other form, could be anything. There are all kinds of ways to do this. What is this called that we're doing? And we realized no one had a name for it, so I had to name it something. We have to call it something. So it became contact marketing, and contact marketing is a really unusual, unique form of marketing because for a lot of reasons. But one is that it's actually it's a fusion of marketing and selling. And a lot of times in big organizations, sales and marketing are separate silos, and they compete with each other. They're suspicious of each other. There's a rivalry between them. All of these things that just shouldn't be happening, really. But they should be supporting each other, It's kind of an obvious thing. But so this is a fusion of the two, of marketing and selling. And what we're doing is we're using these often audacious forms of campaigns to reach out to specific high level and high value prospects and accounts, or some contacts within the accounts, but high level people who can change the scale of everything, change the scale of your business or your career if they become, let's say, clients. If we're talking about clients, if we're talking about sales as the application of contact marketing. And the other thing that makes it really, really unique and different is that we're only talking about going out to a very small audience. So that's already very different from other forms of marketing. Most of the other forms of marketing go out to mass audiences. And they're expensive because they go out. They don't work unless you go out to massive audiences because the response rates are so low. In digital marketing, you might be getting a thousandth of a percent response or click through. That's a response, but thousandth of a percent. That's crazy. And I mentioned the 1% response rate that direct marketers used to love to talk about as a typical response rate. There is no such number, but let's say 1% does work for that. In contact marketing, the record for response so far is 300%, which is crazy. How do you get more than the number of people you send it out to? But it comes from pass along. some of these campaigns are so audacious and so I don't know, just compelling that people just think, can I keep this? And like, who asked that about a campaign? Can I keep this? But can I keep this? And they show it around, and the people who are shown it also respond to the campaign. And the record for for ROI or return on investment is a staggering 69,500,000%. I don't even know. It's like, how do you even understand a number like that? And the only way to do that is to explain that this came from a startup a startup that wanted to break through to the right buyer at Walmart. They were making a tongue cleaner. And this startup had been around for a year. They had sold, I think, about $1 million worth of merchandise online, which is remarkable already. And then they decided, though, that they wanted to get into the big leagues. They wanted to get rolled out in all 6,800 stores in the Walmart system. And so they were trying to get through. And if you apply to the Walmart, I haven't done it, but I'm sure that if you apply to the Walmart new vendor portal, it's such a crowded channel that you'll never get through. You might as well just throw whatever you sent in the trash. You're not going to get through. And so that was what was happening with them, and they got frustrated. And so a couple of the young guys in the marketing department, unbeknownst to the CEO, put together this little ad that they ran on Facebook, and they ran it. I can't remember the zip code, but it's to Bentonville, Arkansas, where Walmart headquarters is. They selected people with a certain level of education, and between these certain ages or age bands, and their target was to reach the right buyer at Walmart. And within 48 hours, they heard from Walmart, but they heard from, I think it was either the communications department or their legal department. And are you the ones who put this ad up on Facebook? Yeah, that's us. Well, would you take it down? But something about Walmart employees have bad breath, but if you carry our product, you won't. So if you then take this thing down, would you please? Yeah, of course. And was this thing run nationally? No. It was run just to you guys. What do you mean? How'd you do that? And they got into this conversation about how really they discovered how good of digital marketers the Orabresh group was. And so they said, well, that's pretty cool. We'll introduce you to the buyer for dental products. And they did. And the buyer said, can you support a $1.5 million order? That's like their initial order. Yeah, we can do that. Solve the problem later on. But of course we can do that. And I asked the CEO, well, okay, so you just got an order for $1.5 million and you just you're going to be rolled out in the Walmart system. What's that worth? What did that do to the worth of the company? And he said it multiplied it by 10. So they ended up creating a $20 million result from a $28 contact ad. So that's the difference just contact marketing is just so different because it goes to very small audiences. It could be just an audience of one. The expenditure per person can go quite high. I mean, they've gone as high that I know of, have gone as high as $10,000 per person, $10,000 to reach one person. But you're only reaching out to one person, and you don't have to spend $10,000. You could spend pennies even. It's certainly conceivable to spend a few dollars, and then the response rates and the ROI are just off the charts. No other form of marketing. I've never heard of another form of marketing that produces anything like those metrics. So that's how it's different.
Well, and the thing that I think is so beautiful about it is it's very targeted. It's not the classic spray and pray and just cast as wide a net as possible and just hope we net something or catch something into the net. In terms of some of the gifts and the experiences, I feel like that the potential viral nature is just so huge, where if it was an experience, somebody is so blown away, they're going to tell all their friends about it and show them the pictures. Or if it's just the coolest, weirdest, strangest thing they've ever received in the mail it's better than any birthday gift they've ever received. I mean, they're going to tell everybody about it. And so it's sort of a marketing niche, a marketing space all unto itself. But Stu, I want to make sure we actually spend some time talking about who I think is one of the most important people in the contact marketing game, the pursuit, the hunt of that target, that key person you're trying to reach, everybody at that level has sometimes multiple gatekeepers. But in terms of the gatekeepers, and really especially those personal assistants, why are they one of the most important people in this whole scenario? What do we need to know about them? What do we need to really think? And how should we honor them as we're trying to go through them to get to that elusive influencer that we want to pitch something?
Yeah, well, think about it. A lot of people say, I think a lot of people ask me, hey, so how do I circumvent the gatekeeper? And I think, well, okay, wait a minute. You need to go to a re-education camp because, you know, first of all, they're not gatekeepers. Well, I mean, gatekeeping is one of many things that they do, but they are actually, you should be thinking of them as VPs of access. If you're talking to the CEO's executive assistant, they are the VP of access. And by the way, they were just like the other members of the C-suite. They report directly to and probably more often to the CEO. So they're some of the sharpest people in their companies. I'm a big fan of executive assistants. Whenever I encounter one, I'm relieved actually because they're very helpful. And another way to think of them, I just said VPs of access, but they're also talent scouts. And a big part of so some of their job is to keep the wrong people out. Of course, they don't want to waste their executives' time, but they're also charged with letting the right people in. Obviously, so you just have to figure out how to become one of the right people, and appeal to their talent, to the talent scout nature of their job. They have to. They're also charged with finding things that'll be of interest and impact for their executive that might not come to them any other way. So they really have an important job they're sort of directing things, not sort of, they are directing things. And you might have had the experience of being directed into the wastebasket, but they're also directing a lot of other things to their executive. And so it's just important to include executive assistants in your campaign. I don't know if it makes sense to give an example of that or not, but
yeah, please.
Yeah. Okay. So, well, I mentioned that we use big boards. So those big cartoon. Oh, I have one right here with me. If I reach down there, here's a big board. So, a cartoon about the recipient. It's personalized. Okay. Yeah, right there. It's personalized to the recipient. It's about the recipient. That's pretty cool. And then there's all the branding and messaging from the sender to the recipient explaining who they are, why they want to meet, and next steps. So when we send these, though, we start with a phone call to the executive assistant, and we're saying, "Hi, my name is so-and-so, and I'm calling because I'm sending a print of a cartoon by one of the Wall Street Journal cartoonists, and it's about your boss." Well, that's enough to turn it all around. They're usually saying, "What? Really?" So yeah, so I want it to be a surprise to you, not to your boss. Sorry, I want it to be a surprise to your boss, not to you. So would you mind if I send you an email real quickly just to confirm all these details? By the way, notice we're not asking to send it. We're not saying, should I send it? We're just saying, I'm sending it and I wanted to let you know. So usually the response to that question of, can I send you an email, is, of course, here's how you spell my name, here's my email address. So a quick email goes out saying, thanks so much for your help on the phone, and to confirm I'm sending a print of a cartoon by one of the Wall Street Journal cartoonists about your boss. I think he's going to really enjoy it. And here are my contact details. And when I have the FedEx tracking information, I'll get back to you with that as well. So that goes out. And then you send a card out. And the card, a little 5x7 card with a handwritten note, and the card it has a cartoon about the executive assistant, and it just inside a little handwritten note that says, "Thanks so much for your help, greatly appreciated." So that goes out. That's a touch. And then finally, when the FedEx tracking information is available, another email goes out. So by the time the big board arrives, there have been 4 touch points with the executive assistant. That's what I mean about including the executive assistant. And by the way, by doing that, they end up becoming they're sort of an internal quarterback for the campaign. They make sure that their boss sees it, and so it just becomes. And they want to make sure that you get through, because they've already decided you should. That's not. They're not weeding you out through all that. They're saying, "Wow, cool talent here. Let this person in." And so yeah, they're just absolutely essential. And I mean, I'm always kind of disappointed when I'm trying to reach someone and they don't have an assistant because they're really very, very helpful and very smart.
Well, and I love that you gave that example because by the time you get through those 3, 4 touch points just to deliver the cartoon to that influencer, that person you're trying to reach, you've built a positive rapport and a good experience with that assistant to the level that the likelihood of them allowing you to take something to a next step or help connect you to go beyond just delivering that cartoon, you've suddenly gone from less than zero to something extremely high because they'd be crazy not to at that point because you've delivered on what you said you were going to do. You made it a seamless, enjoyable experience. You included them and gave them kind of the handwritten note with their own little cartoon. And it's just a positive experience all around. So at the very least, you've created enough rapport and an intrigue factor that they're maybe going to want to see what's next.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, yes, I think so. And whether it's me calling, because I use the big boards too. So whether it's me calling and saying, "Hi, I am one of the Wall Street Journal cartoonists," that's great shock value. And I'm sending a print of one of my cartoons, and it's about your boss. What? Or whether it's or you're a rep who uses that system, and you're saying, "Hi, my name is Shaun, and I'm sending a print of a cartoon by one of the Wall Street Journal cartoonists." It has the same effect, and it just draws the executive assistant in and pulls them in. I guess this might be the subject of another book at another time, but it creates a flip moment. So they go from, it's like flipping a switch. They go from "Who's this?" to "Wow, who is this?" It's amazing. And in fact, that's the effect that I want in all contact marketing. So everything that we send, visual metaphors and cartoons and gifts and all kinds of other things, whatever form that takes, we want people on the other end of this going from "Who is this? What's this?" to "My God, who is this?" You know, that's a great way to start out a conversation with someone.
Well, Stu, let's take a bit of a left turn for a little bit here and talk about movies. Now, this does actually, for the people who are confused, this does relate to what Stu covers in the book. So, in the book, you talk about the movies Hitch and Contact. Hitch is one of my all-time favorite movies. I could probably watch that movie once a month and keep laughing. Contact, I'm not as much of a fan, but I like what you pull out of it in terms of what you cover in the book. So, what do Hitch and Contact teach us about contact marketing?
Well, Contact is my favorite movie of all time. It was just brilliantly done. And then beyond that, well, it's just about if you think about it, every big thing that happens in our lives happens because we've had meetings, because we've connected with someone, and we've had meetings probably, but when we've connected with someone, I mean, that's how things progress in our lives. It just is. So I guess the movie Contact is that writ large. I mean, that's huge. Contact with an alien civilization will change everything for all of us. So I guess it's a giant illustration of that. But otherwise, it's just really, really smartly done. It's a spectacular movie. But then Hitch is a really cool one. Now, Hitch, if you're not familiar with the movie, that's Will Smith, and he's a consultant. He's kind of like a contact marketing consultant in a way, but for romance. And so he helps his clients make these critical connections. It's really like what I do, you know. But the thing that's really cool about that movie is they end up using a lot of devices that some of them show up in my book and some don't. But one of them is sending a live walkie-talkie to someone in a box. It could be delivered by FedEx or by courier, probably more likely by courier. And the person on the receiving end of this, I should say, opens up the box. They find the walkie-talkie and they pick it up, or cell phone, whatever. They pick it up and they, hello, and you're waiting on the other end. Well, that's a pretty compelling thing. Now in Hitch, you get to see it all unfold. You're there, So Hitch is sending a walkie-talkie in a box by courier, and she's waiting on the other end. She's not waiting. She got it, and it's like, "What's this? This is really cool. What is this?" Picks it up, hello, and Hitch is on the other end, and he asks her out on a date, and she says, "Okay." And then they went even further because the courier didn't leave. If she said yes, he handed her a second package, which was the wetsuit. So you get to see these things happen in real time, and you get to see what it's like when contact marketing is in effect. And that's what I like about the two movies.
Well, and actually, and the cover of the book has Walkie Talkie in a box. Was that inspired by Hitch, or have you actually had a customer do that?
Well, people talked about walkie talkies and cell phones, burner phones. And, gosh, isn't it interesting that if you look at the cover of my book, there's a box with a walkie talkie in it.
Well, I think it'd be great in this next part of the interview, Stu, to have you share some of the strangest, most out of the box, unique stories. Whether it was individuals, brands, companies. Like, what are some of the most surprising things you've seen people do in terms of putting this system to work to, winning the hearts of that influencer, that dream client of theirs? What are some of the most unique, standout things you've seen in the last few years?
The thing is, the two books are filled with those stories. Actually, there's so many, but I'm just going to give you two that are sort of diametrically opposed kind of stories. So one of them, is there's a guy who Rick Bennett, who owned an ad agency in the Bay Area, San Francisco Bay Area. And one day, one of his clients approached him and said, I'd really like to present my company to Larry Ellison, the CEO of Oracle, founder of Oracle. I'd like to present my my company to him because I think he'd be interested in buying it. And but the thing is, if I can get in front of him, I'm sure he'll find it really interesting. But I have no idea how to get in front of him. Well, Rick Bennett is just one of these audacious, really odd. I was going to call him crazy, and I guess in a good way, crazy, but really audacious, really, really expansive thinker. And he said, like you tell Rick, I don't know how to do this. He has an idea already, or lots of them. But he says, all right, I got it. I know how to do it. So they produced this contact letter as a full page ad, and they ran it in the Wall Street Journal as a full page ad. That's pretty audacious. It cost them $10,000 to do that, and they got through. The interesting thing is that Larry probably reads the Wall Street Journal, and I don't know that would have. I mean, him reading it, I don't think that would have prompted him to pick up the phone and take a call. But the thing that I think the genius behind this is that it ran nationally in the Wall Street Journal. It's a letter to Larry Ellison, and so the people that had ready access to Larry from around the country were calling him all day long, saying, "Hey, Larry, did you see this thing in the Wall Street Journal?" And so, it worked. He said, "Okay, let's meet," and he ended up buying the company for $350 million. So if you think about it, that's in terms of the stories that I was aware of, that set the record for ROI. I mean, they spent $10,000. They made a $350 million sale. That's a 3.5 million % ROI. That's crazy. But then I found out. Then I heard. I'm going to tell you three stories actually. Then I was giving a speech in Florida, and about contact marketing, and I said, the thing is, this is so common. People have what is this but audacious solutions to a problem of how do we reach people that we need to reach? So I'll bet that there are great stories right here in this audience. In fact, does anyone think about it? Does anyone have a story or an idea, maybe a story that happened to you, or an idea, maybe it's a go-to method that you use about breaking through to someone? And so sure enough, this fellow named Rick Tobin raises his hand. I didn't know him at the time, but he raised his hand and he said, "Well, you're going to think this is kind of silly, but look, I'm in the commercial real estate business, and I had this one prospect that I really wanted to reach and just couldn't break through to this guy. I was sending him letters, dropping by, sending him emails, calling him, sending faxes. Nothing was working. I wasn't getting through. But one day I realized that this fellow's birthday was the following day. So he resolved to go to the bakery in the morning and buy a cupcake and have him put a birthday candle in it and put it in a nice bakery box and cute little thing in the box. And he brought it over to the fellow's office, and the receptionist was all ready to shoo him away again. But he said, "No, wait, it's Bob's birthday. Here, this is for Bob." So she opens it up. Remember I mentioned flip moments? Well, she went from a scowl to a smile. It's like this cute little cupcake in there. How can you resist? And so it was a flip moment. She went from get out of here to, hang on a second. Let me see if Bob's in. Let me see if Bob can take a few minutes with you. She goes out in the back with the cupcake and comes back out with Bob. And Bob says, oh my gosh, Rick, I know you've been trying to reach me, and I'm sorry I've made it so difficult. Come on back. Tell me about what you do. And he walked out of there with a $200,000 deal from a cupcake. and then I'm going to go way, I'm like just to the very, very far end of this. I went from a lot of expense and a lot of, let's say, production value, the full page ad in the Wall Street Journal, to a cupcake, to one guy sent me something. And I just thought, this is so cool. This is just so audacious. All he did was he wrote my address on a block of wood and put a stamp on it, sent it. I thought, okay, that's audacious. You don't have to spend a lot. He didn't spend anything except for the postage. And obviously we've made a connection. So it could be anything. I can't say, I don't want to say it can be anything, but good God, there's so many ways to reach out to someone and delight them. And I guess that's really what we're trying to do. We're delighting them, and we want people to just say, wow, that's just incredible. I love the way you think. And if you get someone saying that, or reacting in that way, then you've made a new contact. And if you're choosing these contacts properly, then you might have just made a life-changing contact. So that's what it's about.
And in terms of kind of those standout moments or items, does it always have to be a physical gift, or are there other times where people will invite somebody to some kind of an experience to go through? Yeah. Or are there any examples of maybe digital gifts, if you will? I'm just curious if physical items tend to work the best, or are there other kind of different sorts of scenarios?
Well, I tend to go to or gravitate to physical things a lot, but look what you and I are doing right now. We're connecting right now, and we are having a bonding experience right now. So, offering to interview someone is a great way to connect with someone. Right? I mean, I'm sure this is a contact campaign. If it should be anyway. I hope some of the people you interview.
You've seen through, Stu. Oh, I mean, and honestly, the with networking and interviewing, for me, it's a tool to meet cool people and to learn and to grow, and just and I just enjoy doing it. But yeah, I mean, doing an interview is a great way to meet people that you wouldn't otherwise have any other reason or opportunity to connect with.
Yeah. And I'm interviewing people for my next book, and I think, I got to knock on wood, I think I just arranged an interview with Buzz Aldrin. That's going to be incredible. I can't wait to talk to him. And he's not going to become a client, but you need meetings for all kinds of breakthroughs, and that is a breakthrough as well, because I will have interviewed someone like that for my next book. That's pretty cool. I mean, this makes the book more interesting. So I guess another one that I think is pretty cool, but it involves sending something physical first. But I really like the idea of Robert O. Smith from Accelerate, sends, he calls them experience boxes. So he has this box crafted, usually he uses humidors, but they could be a custom box. And there's a kind of a false, this box is made of wood, beautiful wood. And there's a false bottom in the box, so this platform built into the box, and there's a model on the box. So the model could be, let's say, a Formula One car, or it could be a MiG fighter, a Soviet MiG fighter from the Korean War, something like that. Whatever it is, it's a model that is tied to an experience that you're giving to this person. So I mean, you have to do some research and find out that I love aviation. I love planes. So anything that had to do with plane, either that or a block of wood. But you could send me a plane, something to invite me to go have this experience of riding in a MiG fighter. I would love that. I would get a big kick out of that. Someone else might love racing or all kinds of things. So if you can attach a model to it, well, this is the model. The scale model is already a scale model of a MiG. Would get my attention, or of some cool car would get my attention for sure. So, but that's what he does. He sends experiences, but in that very physical form. And when you lift up the false bottom, you lift up the model, there's a letter, and there are tickets. Let's say if it was racing, it would be to go to the Bob Bondurant racing school. You get a session to do that. So that's the experience. And that's a great way to connect with probably any CEO. Just do a little bit of research to find out who they are, what they love to do. And then, I also wrote about two emergent forms of personalization. Everyone seems to think personalization, okay, I got it, I know what it is, but not really, because there are at least two forms of it. And I called them wide and deep personalization. And my cartoons are probably as good as example of wide personalization as I could come up with. I just need to know the name. I just need to know the correct spelling of your name, and I can drop it into a caption on the right cartoon. And let's say if you're a CEO, I'm going to send you a cartoon that commemorates your success in business, and I just have to spell your name right. And I could send. Well, I mean, when we were doing direct mail campaigns for Forbes and the Wall Street Journal and so on, they were sending millions of these. So they're personalized, but they're broadly personalized to a broad audience, big audience. This doesn't have to be to a big audience here, but you still can use wide personalization works because you can standardize it. If it's a cartoon, let's say, you can standardize all of it and just drop names in, and it's personalized. Deep personalization is different. That has come about because of the information that we can find when we do profile scrapes, when we examine people's social media profiles. And there's a really cool tool out called Seamless.ai that actually uses AI to scrape everything. So not only profiles, but also all the press clippings. I mean, anywhere where you show up in press stories and so on, it scrapes all of that, finds all of it in a matter of seconds, and comes up with all of the contact information. So it's a real great shortcut. So that's Seamless.ai. And so if you find out that someone, you might find out that someone has a pug named Bob. Actually, we used to have one named Uncle Bob. So you might find that out, and you send them something that has to do with dogs or something for their. Maybe it's a treat for Uncle Bob, or something Uncle Bob could wear. I don't know. If you send something that's relating to their interest, to their specific interest, and when you do that, that's using deep personalization, and that works really well also. So that is sending something physical, but using personalization in some interesting ways. Does that answer the question, or did I go?
Oh yeah, yeah, that's perfect. Well, and I like kind of what you distinguished earlier in terms of reasons that you might go after the pursuit of contact marketing. It isn't always to get a sale. It might be to expand your network. It might be to have a great conversation. It might be to just show yourself on your own platforms, talking to the coolest marketing professionals in the country. You could have a lot of intangible reasons for going after contact marketing that don't always have to do with the pursuit of something financial. So, and an example I'll share in terms of something memorable for an author. I have an author I've worked with for 6 years who lives out in California. And we had dinner one time, and he found out I loved hot sauce. And so he has this restaurant that has this whole special tray of hot sauces they keep on hand. And the manager brings them out when he comes to their restaurant. And he's like, "Oh, you like hot sauce? Well, let me show you how to eat my This Will Kill You hot sauce." And I'm a big fan. So as soon as I got home, I found some crazy "you will die if you eat this hot sauce" and sent it to him as a gift. And now every time I see him anywhere we are in the country, and we see each other probably 4 or 5 times a year at events, if we go out for dinner, he will somehow or other be like, "Hey, I've got this bag of crazy hot peppers I brought with. I'd like to share some with you." And so we made a connection over hot sauce, but because I responded initially and sent him a gift that tied to that, now he never forgets that I like hot sauce. And so it was an interesting way that we were able to connect. So a little bit of content. And that was with an author that I'll continue working with for the foreseeable decade or more. So there, other than trying to further the relationship, I wasn't trying to get through a gatekeeper or open the door wider. It was really just to kind of add another fun element, maybe build the relationship a little bit more.
Well, hang on a second, because I'm taking note. Hot sauce. Let me just write that down.
There you go. So, and maybe that, and maybe that might be another aspect to think of, if you've watched this and listened to this, you're like, man, contact marketing, it could really change my world in terms of connecting with new prospects and new potential clients to work with. but maybe it's also a way that you could level up or just maintain and improve relationships with some of your existing key clients. Because oftentimes it's our existing clients that we can much more easily get new sales with and further relationships with than always going after new clients that we haven't worked with before. So
Yeah.
definitely contact marketing could be widely applicable to all of our clients at some level or to some varying degree. So Stu, almost time for us to wrap up, but I want to ask in terms of the reader's journey with the new book when they get to the last page, and I'm assuming they've diligently followed any exercises or things you've asked them to walk through. If they really just take their time to absorb, process, work through the stuff you share in the book, when they get to that last page, what have you equipped them to do? If they, whether they're a business owner or somebody working with a company, what are they going to be ready to have the tools they need to execute on?
Well, and by the way, I should explain that how to get a meeting with anyone came out first, and then Get the Meeting was written as a companion volume to the first one. So it's not like I wrote the same book twice.
Right.
No, but if you get to if you read through it and you start using and applying that to coming up with concepts for your own situation, whether it's maybe I'm going to assume that a lot of people sell for a living. So, but the thing is, as you pointed out, it's contact marketing. It's you get meetings because you need to get a job. You get meetings because you're finding your mate in life. You meetings serve getting mentors or just expanding your network or finding strategic partners. There are so many ways to use this, but the thing I would say is that you have kind of like a superhero's ability to get meetings with people that you will otherwise. I used to say that I used to get meetings with people I should never be able to reach, but I should. That's the point. You can. So you'd be able to change your life. Actually, I mean, I use this headline in my ads quite a bit. One meeting can change everything, and you have the ability to make that happen. So I would say that's it.
Well, and I want to touch back, Stu, on your origin story. Stu already took the time to be raised by the wolves, to learn all the things that got him to where he is today. He's put that in 2 easy-to-read books so you can glean all of the hard experiences he walked through. You don't have to take the time being raised by the wolves. You just get the benefits and the results. Stu, for
fun.
the
It was a lot of
Stu,
fun.
for the listeners, the viewers who'd like to connect with you, find out more about the books, find out more about the work you do, where should we go on the web?
Well, I mean, the first thing I would say is if you want to connect with me in these ideas, buy the books and read them. Boy, I sound like a typical author, don't I? But the thing is, I put.
Have I told you I have a book? Yeah.
If you want to know about any of this stuff, it's all in there, this book has been changing a lot of lives. So please go out and get the book first. But then you can also find me on LinkedIn. I'm happy to connect with people on LinkedIn. I love connecting with readers and hearing their stories. You can find I have an author site. Just if you remember how to spell my name, it's StuHeinecke.com. So StuHeinecke.com. And you might even look on YouTube. I've got a couple of videos, and I'm adding to that constantly now too.
Well, and in terms of, just my additional plug or endorsement for the book, this is Stu's second time on my podcast. So obviously I'm a fan. I've really gotten a lot out of his excellent work. But I feel like to some degree, your books were maybe a little bit ahead of the curve or maybe even kind of prophetic in a way for the direction that marketing is moving in terms of, I deal with hundreds of authors every year. And in terms of campaigns and connecting with audiences that are warmer to them, I feel like the degrees of separation are diminishing, and the most effective marketing I'm seeing in terms of what my authors are going after and the ways we're partnering with them is it's personal. It's not this spray and pray. It's not this we're trying to reach 20,000 people. Not that I wouldn't love to sell 20,000 units of a book, but the most effective as far as the virality and the ROI, it comes from finding a way to connect with those 100 true fans or those 500 or those 1,000 true fans. And so, in terms of looking for ways to be out of the box and scale that really engage audience, and I'm thinking of it in the context I'm working with, I think something like contact marketing could be very effective where you're creating this shareable viral experience for a smaller engaged group of people who are going to be really excited. And so that's one way I might apply it in the book publishing market that I'm working in. So anyways, as a marketing professional, I can't recommend Stu's excellent work enough. His books are fantastic. They're funny. He has lots of sticky examples. You won't be disappointed. And again, like we do with every episode, we'll have detailed links in the show notes, places where you can connect with Stu and pick up both copies of the book. I'll even include a link to our earlier interview about his book, How to Get a Meeting with Anyone. It's time to bring this episode of the Shaun Tabatt Show to a close. Many thanks for being a part of my conversation with Stu Heinecke. Once again, our book today was Get the Meeting, an illustrative, not illustrative. I'm saying illustrative. An illustrative contact marketing playbook. Again, if you want to connect with Stu and find out more, a great place to start might be his website, stuheinecke.com. But really, if you want to connect with the concepts from the books, head on over to Amazon, Barnes & Noble, your favorite retailer. Pick up a copy of both books, read them in order, and I think it'll really transform your ability to effectively reach those kind of game-changing contacts that you've always wanted to work with. And Stu, I just want to say thanks so much for sharing with us today. It's always a joy. It's always fun to talk with you. I just really appreciate you investing in all of my viewers.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me on. Thanks for being so persistent in getting this meeting. But really a pleasure to join you, Shaun.